Hello YouTube, my name's Nero, and today we have some Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, playing a bit of Domination here on the map Solar, running around the ARX 160, and this gameplay was recorded playing solo. Prayers to all of you guys out there to play solo, man. It is not fun. This gameplay, man, I get a bunch of kills, I get a bunch of flag captures. It just isn't enough. We still end up losing. My teammates just really did nothing. I hate playing solo. It is not fun at all. Sometimes it is fun. Sometimes if the opposing team is just kind of filled with bad players, and your team's also filled with bad players, that's where you can really shine. And that's where you see a lot of people. Like, you see these people getting these crazy scores and stuff like that on YouTube. That's what it usually comes down from. They're usually playing solo or with one friend or so, and everyone on their team's bad, everyone on the other team's bad, and they just go on and dominate. Well, a lot of the time, that's like the exception that breaks the rule. A lot of time, you're actually going to go ahead and you're just going to go up against people that are pretty competent on their team. Your team's going to be decent to below average, and you're just going to go ahead and try your best to win, and it's not going to work out. It's so frustrating. I hate it. I hate playing so. It is just atrocious. But it's still pretty good gameplay, so hopefully you guys all sit back, relax, and enjoy that. Just dominating with that ARX 160, and that's what I actually wanted to kind of talk about today in this video, was the ARX 160, and kind of talk a little bit about yesterday's video and some future videos and things of that nature. So yesterday's video, I talked about the burst weapons here in Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, specifically the ARX 160 and the IMR, and how they're very, very good weapons, and how you can just dominate everybody at these medium to long ranges because the weapons themselves are just so ridiculously efficient and accurate and powerful at those ranges. I saw some people in the comments saying that the ARX was a really bad gun. I saw people in the comments saying the IMR was a bad gun, that burst weapons in Call of Duty in general are just very, very bad guns. One of the comments that really kind of stuck out to me was a comment saying that the ARX is not a very efficient one burst weapon because the range at which you can get a one burst kill with this gun drops off after 11 meters, so therefore it's not a very efficient weapon, therefore you probably shouldn't be using it. It's not a very, very good gun. And meanwhile, I'm reading this comment on this video where I'm dominating with the ARX, just taking people out at these medium to long ranges. In the video I say, yo, it's not a very good one burst weapon, but you know what, you don't necessarily need to one burst something because the fire rate on this gun is great. It really makes it so you can put up that second burst, that third burst, that fourth burst, and you can just take these people out at these very good ranges. And that's what I'm really thinking. I'm wondering how many people out there really kind of look at a gun on paper, but don't necessarily look at a gun in the game and actually use it in practice. That's what I want to talk about in this video. The whole point of this video is that the stats on paper don't always match up with in-game practice, actually using the weapon in the game. Back in the day, I used to be really into the numbers of the guns. I used to love to know how much damage certain weapons did. I used to love to know at what range these weapons were efficient, and I thought it made me a better player. And in some cases it does. In some cases it does. Knowing your weapons on that kind of level can definitely make you a better player. I don't think anybody's trying to disagree with that. But I think a big part of it is some people look at these weapons on paper and then don't actually try them out in the game. That's where the thing that's where the problem I have comes in, right? I want these people to actually try out these guns in game, actually use some of the stuff I'm talking about in the video, and from there they can actually have some success with the weapon regardless of how the weapon really kind of performs on paper. Like I said, I used to play a ton of Call of Duty over the years, and over the years I've actually learned a bit about the weapons. I remember there's been like a lot of quirks with the weapons, and those things are ridiculously useful to know. I remember a couple of examples I have. The Call of Duty 4 AK-47, if you put a red dot sight on it, it actually did less damage. That was weird. I remember reading that on the Den Curson site. I used to read that thing a ton. And I remember learning that it did less damage with a red dot sight. And how does it make any sense? But that was the case. That's actually what happened. And of course, if you use a silencer, you get a range drop off and a little bit of a damage drop off as a result. So because of that, on Call of Duty 4, if you're using the AK-47, you basically want to use it with no attachments. Because of course you're not going to use the ACOG sight. Who uses ACOG on AK-47, right? And that's why, if you've played Call of Duty 4 recently or just ever, and you wondered why you would see these people that were like 10th Prestige, had Red Tiger camo and stuff, and they were still using their AK-47 with no attachments, that's because it was the most efficient one. That was by far the best one because there's no damage drop-offs. I remember in Modern Warfare 2, two weapons. One of them was a light machine gun, that the name escapes me, and the pistol, the M9 pistol. If you were to equip a silencer on either one of these weapons, it just wouldn't work. The silencer would still make you show up on the mini-map. Like, it was crazy. The FAL with the red dot sight in Modern Warfare 2 was off-center. Like, you can go to a private match even and shoot at a wall with your FAL with a red dot sight attached to it, and the bullet, like in the wall, would not be where your red dot sight was. It was just inaccurate. It did not work. It was really weird. I remember the original Black Ops, the SPAS 12 shotgun. It was a semi-automatic shotgun. It was a very, very good gun. And you could have a silencer attachment for it. And the silencer on the SPAS 12 did not not in fact give you any kind of a damage or a range reduction, which was pretty crazy and actually made it so there's really no reason for you not to use a silencer on your Spaz 12 shotgun, because it had the exact same damage and the exact same range as if you didn't have a silencer on. So you might as well use it to stay off the minimap. That's actually very helpful when you're using a shotgun. Learning things like that is always great. It's always good to know the little quirks and kinks with your weapons. That way you can use that. You can apply that knowledge in game. It's definitely good to know that. But it's not necessarily always super beneficial to know every little statistic about your weapon. Like going back to the ARX 160 example, knowing that the one burst range drops off after 11 meters, while that can be helpful to some people, it really isn't. Because like I said in the video, you just always shoot 2 bursts. Always shoot a minimum of 2 bursts, 2 bursts, 3 bursts, 4 bursts, whatever it takes to kill the person. Be sure you do that. And if you go ahead and do that, you're going to be pretty successful with this weapon. You really are going to be pretty successful. It is cool to know the stuff about your weapons. It's cool if you're the kind of person, right, that wants to know the exact range at which a weapon starts doing a lot less damage. If you like to know like the exact percentage that your crosshairs are tightening when using the laser sight or anything like that, that's great. If you want to know that kind of stuff, it can actually be a bit helpful. It's definitely good to know that stuff, and you're probably a better player because of it. But what I'm saying, the whole message I want to get across in this video is don't just look at a weapon on paper, watch some videos on or something like that, and just form an opinion on the gun without using it extensively yourself, right? That's the whole point of it. Because while on paper, you see some people say, look at the ARX here. It's got a pretty good fire rate, but it doesn't get 1 burst kills. It's got really low damage. You probably shouldn't even use it. It's not even that good of a burst weapon. But then you watch gameplays like this of just me using the weapon and taking these people out at these great ranges because of the sheer precision that you have with this weapon. How can you say it's a bad gun? How can you say it's a bad gun, man? It really does not make sense. That's the whole point. That's the whole point of this video I wanted to make today for you guys, was just, it's awesome if you guys want to know stuff about the guns. You want to get really in-depth numbers and details about every single weapon. That's great, but don't let the stats on paper deter you from actually using the gun in practice by using the weapon in game. Be sure you actually go ahead and try out the weapons in game. It is good to know that kind of stuff. It is good to know at what range your stuff's going to drop off. It is good to know how much tighter your crosshairs are going to get. It is good to know that certain attachments may make you, fractions of milliseconds ADS faster, stuff like that. It's good to know that kind of stuff, I suppose, but don't let any of these numbers deter you from actually using the weapons in game, because they all are very viable in one way or another, with the exception of a few. I think we can all agree that the EPM3 is one of, if not the worst gun in Call of Duty. Some people actually like the MK14. For me personally, I haven't really given it too big of a try, but the times I have tried, I haven't really liked it a whole lot, and I have seen a lot of people saying that's very, very underpowered. Of course, I want to actually use the gun a ton myself to kind of get more of an opinion on that, but still, there are some weaker guns in the game, but don't think that every single gun is weak in the game based upon what you see from other people's videos, what you see just from stats, if you're maybe so using Deng Person or using things like that where you can learn this kind of stuff. Make sure you actually still try out the weapon. It is good to know the kind of stuff, but make sure you actually try out the weapon, because it's something I've seen periodically throughout Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. I've seen a ton on my videos. It's like, Nero, this gun does this gun does that, and it's not that good at this range, and it's like, but I'm doing good with it. Like, I don't get it. Like, every gun in this game is at least somewhat viable. It's good to know this kind of stuff, but you just continue to use stuff, because if you want to min-max Call of Duty to the point where you want to know literally everything, I can tell you the best class. Use a ball 27, use a quick draw, and use an adjustable stock, and from there you can either use a grip if you want to, or you can use a red dot sight if you want to. Choose between those. Maybe you want to run extended mag for more spray and pray. We all know the best weapons in the game if you really want to get down to the point where you're like literally min-maxing everything, but at the same time you don't want to just min-max everything, because if you want to get to down to nitty-gritty of it, every single Call of Duty game has a quote-unquote best gun, or at least a best gun of that tier. There's always an assault rifle in every Call of Duty game that's better than the rest of them. There's always a submachine gun that's better than the rest of them. There's always a heavy weapon. There's always a shotgun that's just better than the rest of them, right? We all get that. We all understand that. But the point of it is, if you care so much about that at that point, why would you not just use the best guns all the time, right? If you want to have some variety in your game, you're going to have to accept that a lot of these guns, they do have their faults. They do. You look at the ARX, while it's a very good weapon, it's not going to do any good close range. We all know that. It just doesn't. It doesn't have a whole lot of damage. It's very inaccurate if you're trying to hip fire or anything like that. It's not a good close range weapon. We get that. That's kind of give and take though, because this weapon, very few of them can actually compete with it at those medium to longer ranges, right? We can't get that. So all I'm saying is just try out the weapons, and don't just try to base an entire opinion off of numbers, off of stats that you've learned about the weapons. So actually try out the weapons in game, and from there you will actually find a lot more success, and you'll actually enjoy the guns a lot more by actually using them in practice, because they all require kind of their own playstyle, right? If you want to go with a submachine gun, that requires a completely different playstyle than if you're using an AK-12. You want to use an AK-12, that requires a lot of a different playstyle than if you're using a shotgun, right? Definitely requires just a completely different playstyle. If you want to go with the ARX-160, it requires a completely different playstyle than if you're using, oh, I don't know, probably going back to the SMG example or something like that. A lot of these guns actually perform a lot differently, even the same categories, right? So you look at the Ball 27, and then you look at the HBR-A3. The Ball 27, you have a lot more room for error if you're going close range, just because of that crazy fire rate, right? But whereas the HBR has a horrible fire rate, awful fire rate, just bad, right? So that gun is more of a medium to longer range full auto rifle. But if you want an alternative to that, you could go ahead and you could use one of these burst weapons, which are also very good to medium to long ranges, but they also give you a bit more precision because you're firing that burst, whereas you don't have the inaccuracies that come with a full auto weapon, right? That idea. So every single gun and every single weapon category, they all kind of require a bit different of a playstyle. And what I'm saying is just go ahead and try out that stuff. You're definitely going to enjoy Call of Duty a bit more. The game's going to remain more fresh to you, because I've seen people, I remember seeing a lot of people, especially during Black Ops 2, because you can look at their combat records in the game, right? In the pregame lobby. I remember looking at people, it's like, this man has like 20,000 kills with the M8A1, and he's thrown like 30,000 C4. Like, this guy uses the same class every game. How is that fun for anybody? You know, that idea, right? And so try out weapons. You don't want to just use the same weapon all the time. Try out new weapons. You're going to find you're going to have a lot more fun with Call of Duty as a result of that. So I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. And if you did, please be sure to leave a rating where you guys feel the video deserves. And what is your guys' favorite underused weapon? Let me know about that in the comment section. I would definitely be interested to read about that. Once again, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. And if you did, please be sure to leave a rating. Hope you guys all have a wonderful day.